I'm Jessica, but all my friends call me Jess. I'm 21 and just about to get married to the love of my life. I love to run, write, and sing, but mostly I spend my time studying. You see, when I was 5, my parents died in a horrific car crash. Some drunk driver hit them when they were on their way to get me from school after I fell sick during a school play rehearsal. I think I knew it was my fault the moment we got the news, but I wasn't the only one. You see, my Aunt Miriam was my father's best friend. They were only a year apart in ages, and so they grew up to be inseparable. Seeing my dad and the aunt being so close made me wish I had a sibling. You can imagine how devastated she was to lose her brother and her best friend in one day. My aunt never liked me much, but I think she also didn't like my mom. When Dad got married, his time was no longer fixed on her. I'm telling you this because it's relevant. When my parents died, my Aunt Miriam was the first on the list to become my guardian. I could tell just from looking at her that she hated me more then than she ever had before. But I blamed myself too, so I felt as though I deserved the punishment.
Come with me, you little wretch. I'll make you understand what you've done.
She grabbed me by the scruff of my neck and dragged me towards her car, where she threw me into the trunk and drove me 4 hours to her house. I don't know if I had any expectations, but I remember the darkness of the trunk being so heavy that I could barely breathe. I cried the entire way there, and I don't think I stopped for the next 6 months. Aunt Miriam was the creator of all my nightmares. She didn't care what she did because she didn't think it was unjustified. She never beat me. That was the one thing she did that I think made her feel like everything else was okay. What she did do, I feel, was way worse. She didn't feed me anything other than table scraps. I was no better than a dog in her eyes, and definitely not worth the effort of cooking an entire meal for me. I was thin as a rake by the time I went to school, but it was never taken very seriously. They just thought I had a fast metabolism. I spent a lot of my childhood sleeping in a shed in the garden. It was filthy, damp, cold, utterly miserable, and perfect for the effect she was trying to achieve. She wanted me to feel the pain she'd been forced to feel when she learned that her brother was dead. By the time I was 16, I was sick in so many ways. Sick of the way I was treated, sick of not being allowed to grieve my family, and physically sick. My body was aging faster than I was. I burned easily because of how much time I spent indoors, and I was so malnourished that my height had been irreparably stunted. This was bad enough, but then one morning, just as I was dragging myself out of the house to get to school, my aunt gave me some devastating news.
Don't bother returning after school today. I'm pregnant, and I don't want you to sully the home any longer.
Where am I supposed to go?
I don't care. Get out, and I never want to see your face again.
She shoved me out of the door and slammed it in my face. I couldn't believe it. She'd always been awful, but this was my home, for better or worse. I had nowhere else to go. I looked back at the house that held no happy memories and decided that, no matter what happened, I could get revenge on Aunt Miriam. But first, I had to find a place to sleep. I went to school, as normal, and pretended like nothing was wrong. My friends, few as they were, could tell that something was bothering me. I didn't say, though. I knew they were worried and had been the entire time I knew them. I feared that if I told them what was wrong, they would involve a grown-up, and that would make things more complicated. Grown-ups didn't want to believe that my aunt could be bad because she was on the town council. In everyone's eyes, she was a saint for taking me in after her brother died. I was always a second thought. The poor dear with no parents, but so lucky to have such a great aunt. No one even batted an eye at how I was dressed, or how sick I was, or that I was depressed most of the time. So, no. I couldn't tell my friends because I'd be called a liar on top of being homeless, and that was not ideal. So, I kept myself to myself, and quietly fretted. Later that day, I was in the library, trying to find information about where a minor could go to get housing for work, when I stumbled across a trapdoor. It was tucked underneath the History of Europe bookshelf, and looked almost like it was part of the carpet. I wouldn't have noticed at all if it wasn't for the hollow sound of my foot hitting it. I looked around myself and found that no one was watching, so I opened it up and crept down the rickety ladder. It was dark inside, unsurprisingly, but it was spacious and warm. I hid in a bathroom that afternoon, after the final bell. I kept my feet up from the floor and read a book until the lights went out. I checked my watch, waited a further 30 minutes, and then made my way to the hole in the floor. The first few weeks of living in there were unpleasant, but I slowly figured things out. I smuggled blankets and pillows in, as well as food and books and lights. By the end of the first month, I'd created a cozy nook, and I was able to borrow books as I pleased. I took my studying seriously. I worked hard and came top of my class for almost everything. Living in the school left me a lot of time to get my work done and gave me unrestricted access to the school's facilities. By the time graduation came 2 years later, I had a 4.5 GPA and 3 scholarships from an Ivy League university. I knew I was well on my way to getting my revenge. They say the best revenge is living well, but I think the best revenge will be living well and ruining her carefully sown reputation. I knew how to hit her where it hurt, and it was with honesty. But first, I had to get a good reputation myself. I graduated from university and then completed my master's. I got funding for my PhD, and my thesis project was a camera that could be manufactured cheaply and hidden well on a person. I decided I wanted to show off my invention to my aunt, to make her see exactly what she'd inspired. I went to her house and met her 2 tween daughters. They smiled and called for their mom, who looked happy right up until she recognized me.
You!
Yes, me. I just thought I'd come by and show you what I've created. You always thought I would be a waste of space, but this is one of the most innovative pieces of technology in your lifetime. And I've done it all to help people in need. I'm on a shortlist for a Nobel Prize. Imagine how that would have benefited your precious reputation. You could have been the hero that raised a genius, but instead you're the bully that left me on the streets to die. I hope that alone haunts you.
I didn't bully you.
What do you call locking me in the shed and starving me for weeks?
Payback for killing my brother.
That was all I needed to hear from her. The truth. She'd done those things, and felt like she was justified in doing so. A year after the initial release of the abuse cam, I held a press conference to announce big changes in the product. I stood on a stage in front of hundreds of participants under the heat of the spotlight, and I had to prepare myself. I was about to start the main phase of my revenge, the section that would hit the hardest. I thought about all the cold nights, the fear, the hunger, and the pain, and I smiled. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the start of the Summer Technology Conference. Thank you all for being here today, and for being so supportive of our company and its endeavors. I'm very happy to be a part of the ST family, and even happier to be able to present you with something new. This product was made with a particular group of people in mind, abuse victims. See, I know a lot about abuse, and I know that most importantly, getting someone to believe you in the difference between being safe and being unsafe. When I was young, no one ever believed me. But watch the camera in action and see just how easy it is to find the truth and share it with people. I showed the video of the confrontation with my aunt, and immediately I could see faces glow as they opened their phones. Presumably they were going on social media to share my story. The moment the conference ended, I logged into my news app and I saw my face split over a thumbnail with my aunt's. It had worked. I had gotten my truth out and there was no going back. It was only a matter of seeing what was going to happen as we went forwards from here. A week after the news was released, I got a phone call from the police. They explained that they had taken my aunt into custody, and the social services were conducting an investigation into her treatment of me and her own children. I watched the news that night.
A local governor has been arrested today as it came to light that she spent much of the now incredibly successful Jessica Stone's childhood abusing her. The claim is that Stone was kept in a shed, and food was withheld. These allegations have come forward during the Summer Technology Annual Conference, where esteemed technician Stone showed the audience damning footage of her aunt, admitting that she mistreated her niece out of a misguided attempt to seek revenge over the death of her brother. The death was caused by a drunk driver, as Stone's parents were driving to the school to pick her up. Within 24 hours, a 5-year-old Jessica Stone was orphaned and then immediately dropped into the custody of an abusive aunt. Sympathies are coming in from across the internet for Miss Stone.
Aunt Miriam was imprisoned, and her children were sent to live with their father. All of my aunt's assets were stripped, and her reputation was in tatters. She would never be able to live out her dream of working her way up to Oval Office. In fact, the way things are looking, she may never be able to work at all. I went to visit her in prison.
What do you want?
To tell you that I've put $1 million in savings for each of your daughters. They'll go to college, start a new life, and never have need of you again. I don't know if you ever treated them the same way that you treated me, but know this. Being capable of treating a child the way you did is more than enough reason for you to be here, and to never be allowed contact with your children again. You disgust me, and I hope you rot in prison. Please subscribe.